Welcome and thank you all for joining us for the official kickoff of the ACI mentoring program. For those of you who I haven't officially met yet, my name is Erica Schwegman and I am the Associate Director of Membership and Operations with ACI. Again, before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone to please remain muted throughout the program, and we absolutely encourage you to keep your cameras on. Feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom to thank our panelists, ask questions, and meet other participants. If you haven't done so already, again, in the upper right-hand corner, click the view button and select speaker view. That way you will see who is speaking at the exact moment. Now that housekeeping is complete, let's address why we are here today. For a few years now, our ACI Young Professionals have hosted several breakfasts with the board and industry mentors, along with lessons learned. There has always been a cultural need for growth, development, and interpersonal relationships. ACIYP recognized this and decided to take action, like always, and create the ACI mentoring program for all ACI members, not just our young professionals, all ACI members. Anyone can utilize the program that we're launching. So here we are today, and this is just the beginning. Today marks the first of 3 sessions comprised of 2 panel discussions and a small group breakout. These sessions will cover the culture of mentoring in and outside the walls of your company. In the very near future, we will be providing all participants information on the official ACI Mentor program, where we will invite you to sign up to mentor or be matched with a mentor. We also plan to have a couple of speed networking events throughout the year. Yes, they will be in person. And this will help foster these extremely important relationships. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to your moderator for the day, Michael Raitt with the Asset Advisory Group. Michael has been a member of ACI for many years now, and in his tenure, he has served on multiple committees, even holding the chair position for ACIYP. Michael was an integral part in the design and launching of our Say Yes to the Mess event, which is in support of the ACIYP Skilled Trade Awards, which has now provided 27 awards over the last 4 years, totaling in $13,500. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thank you everyone for being here. I know we're really excited for the turnout and for the launching of this mentorship program. I want to take a minute before I introduce our panelists to recognize the subcommittee of individuals that helped bring all this together. Jeff Ryan with Terex Development and Construction. Jeff is also our current chair of the YP committee. Kristen Hanel with Messer, she's the co-chair of the YP. Drew Hall with Messer. Caroline Courtney with Chubb Surety. Miani Napier with Valley Interior Systems. Chris Schneider with Pattern Concrete of Cincinnati. John Westerkamp of Pioneer Cladding and Glazing Systems, and also Kelsey Kroner with ACI, and of course Erica. So thanks to all those individuals who really did a lot to help pull this together and turn this vision of a mentorship program into reality for ACI. So we have 4 panelists today. All 4 of these gentlemen were selected because they have strong mentorship cultures within their companies. So we're excited to kind of pick their brains and hear more about that. So I'm gonna make a quick introduction and then we'll get into this. Juston Taulbee is president with Valley Interior Systems. Greg Riley is with us, the president of Schaefer. Jim Watkins is the president with Triversity, and Albert Smitherman is the president with Juston Construction. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today. We're really excited to hear your input on everything. And Albert, if it's okay, I want to start with you, and we'll kind of give each of you guys a chance to weigh in here. But if you could talk a little bit just about mentoring at Juston Construction, you know, what it means to you guys, how you implement your mentoring culture, and the role that you play within that.
Okay, so I'm Albert Smitherman. I think I have one of the best jobs in Cincinnati. I get to be the president of Juston Construction, and I'm sure everybody else feels the same way. Our mentor program, we started probably 10 years ago. And to start a mentoring program is hard. We actually didn't know what we were doing. But we knew we wanted to retain people and introduce new people to the construction industry. And how did we do both better? And Liza, my wife, came up with, we need to have a mentoring program. Me being the president, I have to say, I agree, because everything starts at the top. If you don't agree, if you don't say, hey, I'm gonna put my weight behind this, I'm gonna participate, then it's not gonna happen. So Liza said, through her workforce development and growing people and her professional development, we need to have a mentor program, and we need to use this program to introduce people to the construction industry, introduce them to Juston Construction, and then how can we use this program to keep them? One of our big mistakes that I found out very quickly, you have to, number one, want to be a mentor. Everybody doesn't want to be a mentor. And then the bigger, you have to want to be a mentee. You have to want to go to meetings. You have to want to better yourself. You have to want to say, where are my gaps personally, and how can I fill those gaps to become better at what I'm doing? So one thing we found out very quickly is when we started describing things as being a mentor-mentee relationship, a lot of people did not want to participate. And a lot of our mentor, let me go back, a lot of our mentor and mentee relationships at that time were starting in our field. We call our field people field professionals because we want them to go out and act professional every day on behalf of Juston, be professional, have the soft skills. So part of our mentoring was trying to make sure that our people that work here at Juston have all the soft skills, dressing right, coming to work on time, presenting yourself correctly. Doesn't matter if you're talking to a project manager for another company or you're talking to Juston's project manager or superintendent. So all of a sudden we started these programs, and they started off with a bang, and then all of a sudden they started fizzling out because people didn't want to be named a mentee. I'm a mentee, or I don't want a mentor. So probably 5 years later, we came up with this program. My wife again did, along with people in our Juston. We came up with the Ally program, and the Ally program, we just changed the name to call them allies instead of mentors or mentees, but really the mentor. And the allies' job was to meet with their mentee every week. And they would just take them after work to someplace to get a cup of coffee or on Saturday morning and discuss what were the barriers stopping them from coming to work on time. What did they like about their job? What didn't they like about the job? What would they see? What are the next steps for them? How could they go from a level 1 laborer to a level 2, or a level 1 finisher to a level 2? How much time would that take? What kind of questions should they be asking their superintendent? And then we saw a little bit of change that we started, because we did this to grow people within our industry, introduce them to the industry. It was always a part of Juston's culture, but then we started seeing a little more retention because people were showing value in other people's lives. So it still goes today, not as well as what we should be doing. We should be doing better, but it still goes today. Within our office, we started and got on an EOS system, our operating system, and all of our managers are required. We once again didn't want to call it a mentor-mentee relationship because of how people felt, but they have one-on-one meetings, and they have to have one-on-one meetings with their staff, independent, and look at their growth bi-weekly. So it has to be a meeting one-on-one, bi-weekly at the least. Some people meet every week. And the first question that we have to ask is, how are you doing personally, and how are you doing professionally? And that meeting is designed to start getting into people's lives, showing that we care. How can we help you reach your goals? Whether you're going to stay with Juston or not, how can we help you reach your goals, and that we're interested? So I don't want to take up everybody's time. That's what we're doing here at Juston, and so far it's working pretty good.
Great. Thank you, Albert. Greg, I'm going to come to you next. Same question. Just give us a little bit of overview of what mentoring looks like at Schaefer, and what role you've played in that over the years.
Sure. For us at Schaefer, we have a little bit of a different sort of environment than my three fellow panelists. We are a structural engineering firm, so we are primarily in the office, primarily educated individuals with degrees. So it's a little bit different from as far as like barriers getting to work and stuff. We don't find ourselves in that situation so much, but it's a very it still means that mentoring, though, is every bit as important for us as it is for anyone. In a service-related industry, we consider ourselves, if we don't develop people well, we're done, because the value of our business lies in the skills and the relationships held by our people, and we need to be able to transfer and share this knowledge effectively and efficiently. So we view it as an area where we just absolutely must excel. And if we're successful with that, everyone wins. So my current role, similar to Albert, as a president, it's high-level oversight at this point, as it is with anything that is really vital to our success. I was a mentor a long time ago for entry-level individuals, but at this point, it's more of informal mentoring relationships for those that are transferring into leadership roles or managerial roles. I help out here and there with some mentoring, but overall, it's that high level oversight. Similar to Juston's journey, it's something that we had that we did fairly well organically, but we decided we'd make it official, and we made it mandatory. So at Schaefer, everyone will get a mentor when you come in, whether you have 2 minutes of experience or 25 years of experience. Now, obviously, that relationship looks different depending on the level of experience and the parties involved. But as part of our culture, it is just something that has to happen, and no one should be exempt from that ability or that desire to want to grow and be better and be able to adapt to the environment you're in to be successful and contribute the maximum you can for the effectiveness of the team. Great. So I'm happy to answer whatever additional questions people might have as the morning goes on, but that's probably a good stopping point as far as a high level overview for what we do at Schaefer.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Jim, I'm going to come to you with, again, same question just to kind of get us kicked off here. At Triversity, what's the mentorship culture program look like there, and what's your role in it today?
Just to follow on, a little different, and I think one of the things you'll hear today is a little bit of a theme. So it's almost like a cord where you see things are kind of weaved together, but different strands make the cord. For us, it's this whole COVID pandemic era that we've been living through for the past year really gave us a few different wake-up calls and changed a lot, because the separation was one thing that reminded us that a lot of times what happens through what I'll call osmosis, the osmosis factor, you get a little bit of coaching, mentoring, sometimes by just by default. One of the things that we're working on now, we've actually started to restructure our program. So we've actually consulted with some folks that are a little smarter than us in that regard, because sometimes the definition of insanity is kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So one of the things that we've done is we've taken the time for this particular year to do a few things. We brought in a consultant. We've identified what we consider what's considered mentoring is today, because much the same as Albert talked about the changes that they've gone through with the mentor-mentee program. One of the things that we've decided to do is tweak some of our existing processes. So when we go through the performance review process, we didn't just make it a program where you wait till the end of the year to check in with someone. So you may have a little bit of a manager kind of mentor relationship. So, but it's not the kind of relationship where you're waiting to be, assessed on how you're doing on a particular task. But it's really a check-in quarterly is one of the things that we do with our folks. And that check-in, we essentially ask 3 or 4 questions. How's it going? How's what some looking ahead, and then one or two other goal related questions. So it's really a check-in in that regard. So it's a little structure. However, the part that we're looking at now is going back to Albert's point is sometimes folks don't really want to call themselves being a mentee in the professional space. So we're looking at how do we change that. So we're actually going through the process now of revamping. There's a lot more I could talk about this, but generally speaking, what we're trying to do is more or less redefine the personal touch side of the relationship. The other part too is just knowing that you have folks, that are good mentors. How do you know if you are up for the task to be a good mentor for your team within the organization? And then something else that we've also learned is by bringing in other external coaches, someone who's not really part of your organization is another effort that we put in place as well. So it's a combination of coaching, checking in, mentoring. You kind of add all that up together, and collectively, what we're hoping for is that you get that personal experience. And the personal experience for some may be different because there are some of us that want more of a technical guidance, kind of lead me in a direction. There's some of us that kind of need some more personal experiences because now I'm a professional, or now I've got a different role because at one point I was at this level, now I've got this level. So I'm not really looking for that technical checking in, I'm looking for more of guidance. So right now, I guess, just to sum it up, a few different things. We've got some outside consultants that are working with us to kind of revamp as a result of just this time we've had apart from each other, so that we go ahead. And then lastly, I would tell you, looking at your business culture in and of itself, making sure that you have an environment that welcomes culture, mentoring in and of itself as well.
Great. Thank you, Jim, for that. That was good input. Last but not least, Juston, Taulbee, if you could, again, just tell us a little bit more about the mentoring culture at Valley Interior Systems and what role you played in that, and just a little bit of a high-level overview of how you guys do things.
Yeah, sure. So for us, Michael, I've got to admit that I feel like I am still a mentee. I feel like I will probably remain a mentee through my career, if that's fair to say. I think it's important that have that mindset, because I think we all can relate to when we first started in the company, and we probably grabbed onto and surround ourselves with the right people. And for me, that remains. And I think for other folks in our organization, that is critical. And, we talked yesterday, Michael and Erica and I, about quote unquote the program, and we view it as culture. And for us at Valley, we call it the Valley Way, similar to what Albert had mentioned, changing the word program to ally. I think you called it Ally program. Is that correct, Albert? Yeah. So for us, we call it the Valley Way, and that's defined in many different ways. We're on the third generation of the company, and it started with our founder that, part of our goals are to continue that Valley Way as we move forward. And, we want to celebrate a 100-year anniversary. That's one of our goals. So how do we get there? And then we believe that it's all about the people we surround ourselves with. The third goal is remain friends. So we want to be able to do that. Part of what we've done, and to answer your question as far as what my role would look like in that, we've done self-assessments for our employees, which through that process has been able to allow us to match folks up with the right individuals in the company. And what we found out is we've got a lot of people who love to teach, a lot of people who love to train, and being aware of that and getting them partnered up for us has been successful. I noticed we got Joel on there, the athletic trainer. Things like that have opened our eyes too, that our employees don't always want to listen to us, right? There's folks out there in partnerships that we can partner with that folks think differently, that can I guess, partner with our employees in a different way than being like a mentor, a coach. We got different folks that we can partner with outside the organization that thinks like them and helps teach them and coach them in different ways. So it's good to see Joel on the line as well. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's a quick snapshot.
That's great. That's great. No, that I wanted to kind of start there with just kind of an overview and give you guys a chance to chime in at a high level. As we dig a little deeper, Albert, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to give everyone the same question to just kind of frame up some of the other discussion. But Albert, what would you say if you had to limit it to maybe the one or two top benefits of your mentorship culture and the benefits that Juston as a company has received? Maybe not so much the individuals involved, but thinking about it from the president's point of view of your organization, what do you think having that mentorship culture has done for Juston?
Say easily the number one thing that's done for us is retain our people. So I was encouraged Monday, whenever we get a new hire, we're on WebEx now, and we go around and say, how long have you been with Juston and what is your role? And Liza and I, of course, started the business 23 years ago, and we're still here. But then we had Mike Beef say, I've been there 21 years. Whitney said, I've been here 20. Mike Mattis, 19. Jenny Jones, 18. It went right down the line that Juston probably had 25 people that had over 12 years with our business. And I can just see the growth of our business because we are keeping all of that experience within our business. It is keeping our culture, because the culture is the number one thing in any business. So, why do we have a mentorship program? What is it doing? It starts with our why statement, that we're here. Everybody has to know Juston's why statement. We're here to create and provide a diversity of opportunity for all. And if we all ask ourselves that question every single time we're making a decision, does it fit our why statement? And then we go through our values. Number one being diversity wins. Number two, all in all the time. Number three, following the golden rule. Number four, the best at getting better. Number five, good old ridiculous fun. And number six, going first. And all of when we're doing our mentor-mentee relationship, which is really our one-on-one meetings, we're evaluating our people on our why statement and our 6 values, and that culture drives retaining our people. So number one is the retaining of our people. We have one superintendent out in the field, Kevin Glenn. I don't know how many people would know him, but he's been here 23 years, since day one, and it's all about the culture. And we probably have other superintendents that have been here from 17 years down to 12 years. And when you can retain your people and keep that experience, which keeps your culture very tight, you can grow and create other opportunities for new people coming in. And they can see that you're willing to grow and create opportunities for them. So then they want to be part of your organization, and you can get good people and grow. So retention, I would say, is number one.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Greg, I'm going to come back to you with the same question. I think you alluded to it a little bit in your first answer, talking about how Schaefer is obviously a service-oriented business and, needing to kind of enhance the development of people and kind of push that on everybody for the sake of the business. But are there other benefits, or do you want to elaborate on that as to how the mentorship cultures helped you guys from a business standpoint?
Sure, I'll elaborate on that, and then a little bit on what Albert had to say as well. So as far as the service industry part of it goes, we believe that the construction industry is a noble profession, and that as structural engineers, we play a very important part of just the overall success and role of that industry. We need to be able to do the sorts of designs such that we are efficiently using the owner's money, and we also need to be in a position where we can effectively keep people safe. That is an important responsibility. When we screw up, people know it because it's expensive and potentially dangerous. So from that standpoint, that is a huge benefit for mentoring, or a huge reason why we need to be successful with that mentoring. But then, building off of what Albert said, for us, it ties to employee satisfaction. for people on the Schaefer team, we want to hire people that have a hunger to learn and grow. And if they have that hunger, they will be eager to engage in this mentor and mentee relationship. And that's important for us because we believe, for a variety of reasons, that we just have to grow. We believe it's important to create those opportunities for other people, Albert mentioned, but then also just if we want to continue to turn internal ownership over, we need to be growing. And so from that standpoint, if you think about what is required for growth, it's change. So unless we want a bunch of turnover, we're going to need people to change, and we're going to need people to grow, and change could be uncomfortable for people. So if you get a group of people that are willing to be uncomfortable, put themselves in positions and in relationships such that they can grow and they can keep up their personal growth and development with the growth and development of the company, then you're going to be able to build staff and not have turnover issues and have some of those positive stories like Albert talked about, where you're going to have people that have been around for several years. And the beautiful thing about it is that those aren't just people that are sitting there doing the exact same thing they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago even. Those people are much more effective and much better individuals at contributing to the company than they were 10 or 20 years ago, because they've grown with the company, and that requires effective mentoring and being willing to be a mentee. I agree with what Justin said. We are all, once you get not too far along, you are a mentor and a mentee continuously, both. And if not, then either you're not growing or you're not contributing to the growth of someone else. So
Great. Thank you. Jim, what about for you guys at Traversity? What do you think is the if it's the same and you want to elaborate, or maybe it's different, or another benefit of the program that you guys have put together?
No, so Traversity, we have both construction management side of the business and then a craft side of the business, but our values are the same. So when I heard a mention of value, as I said before, over the course of this, you'll probably hear some similar themes. But when we talk about values, one of the values that, as I think about it, is the empowered individual is one of the values of being an empowered individual. And one of the benefits of having a mentor relationship of sorts is that it gives you an ability to kind of know where you're at, know where you're going, and gives you an opportunity to have a voice, to speak for what you want. And that's one of the things when I talked about the check-ins at this organization, regardless of whether you're a project manager, project engineer for a project, or if you're a carpenter, finisher, or a new laborer that just started with us, we want you to share in the same values that we have of being an empowered person. So you don't feel like I have to wait. If you see a path for your particular career, then we want to talk about what do you see. So that's important to us. Of course, the retention is important. I think that's pretty cool when Albert talks about the number of folks that have been in his organization for those years. I think that's fantastic. I've been personally here in Cincinnati. I'm into my 9th year, and I tell everyone now that Cincinnati is my destination, not just a stop. And so I'd like for our folks to see that Traversity is a destination for them as well, so that we can talk about those same kinds of numbers. And having that mentor program gives you an ability to have a voice, to talk to share what your thoughts are, because you're going to need that at different times. So you need to have an avenue or vehicle that gives you an opportunity to talk about what's important to you now. Because if I remember the days of being a project engineer, superintendent, project manager, there were things that were important to me then, versus when you get into roles where the less technical things are more important, then more of the soft skill type things become more important. And this thing called leadership. So what does that really mean? So those are the times when you need an opportunity or a vehicle that will give you a chance to kind of talk about those things, because as you grow, that helps you become empowered. And when you're empowered, you're able to speak to. So we want this to be an organization where those are the opportunities are here, the system that we have. And then the latest of changes, which is why I mentioned just going to the outside, having an outside source to kind of give us what's happening in the industry because of the changes and so many different things that are affected either by technology or other types of means that are changing our industry and people as a whole.
Jim, I want to follow up on that real quick because you had mentioned you guys are going through changes to your program. What kind of led you guys there? I know you mentioned COVID kind of enlightened you a little bit, but talk more about what benefits you hope to get by implementing some of the changes that you're doing that you don't feel like you're getting the most of today.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the market, but boy, I tell you, if you talk to most businesses today, or a good fair number of them, you ask them what's your biggest challenge, and they'll talk about people, getting folks in the organization. And in construction, we're challenged regardless of if you're a management firm, craft business, supplier, vendor of sorts. And then there's other related businesses, whether you're in law, whether you're in accounting, or marketing for that matter. Just being able to recognize that we're in a business that's generational. You hear about the Gen X, the boomers, there are folks going on their way out, more coming in. And so what we wanted to know is we wanted to be smart about weaving all of the different generations together and understanding the needs. Some of that is different because of the differences in technology that are driving it. I remember, I don't want to embarrass myself, but back in the day when I was in college or just thinking about the research that I wanted to find out about learning things, I had to literally go places to get this stuff. Whereas now we have staff, if you bring up any subject matter in less than 15 seconds, they can pull up that iPhone and say, well, here's what I understand. So you've got to have a culture that recognizes the differences in people. You've got to have a culture that takes advantages of the opportunities of technology, takes advantages of the opportunity. It doesn't mean that you have to throw everything out and bring all things in new, but you want to make sure that you're constantly upgrading. We go through a strategic cycle of change within our organization every 3 years. So every 3 years, we go through a process of looking at who we are, what do we want, what are our aspirations, what's our BHAG or big, hairy, audacious goal next. And as we look at those things, we look at everything from whether it's a financial aspect or to our people. How do we get folks to want to be here? How do we get the folks that are here to maintain an interest of being here and making sure that we're giving them the most for their careers here within our company and here within Cincinnati?
Okay, great, thank you. Juston, I want to hear a little bit more from you on what you feel like the benefits are of having that mentoring culture. And then I also have a follow-up question for you as well, based on something you said earlier.
Okay. Just to recap a little bit on what Jim was saying on empowerment. One of my mentors has always said, empowerment without abandonment. And if we try to live by those rules, we'll be successful. So you want to empower somebody to do things, but also don't abandon them, right? You want to be there for them. So that's something that we've developed here. In a world of not wanting to be contagious right now, that's something that we promote, is to be contagious, right? Make people want to, be at a location, be at work, and try to create that environment that you don't need a vacation from. And similar to what Albert had said, we've got folks that's been here for 35 years, and those have become our mentors, and those are the folks that continue the Valley Way. At the same time, we talk about value all and value added, and we try to live by that as well. And if we can value all the partners that we come across, we feel like there'll be a value added at the end. So that's kind of those things, Michael, that we strive for.
All right, and you had mentioned, Juston, we'll shift gears a little bit here. You had said you guys go through kind of a self-assessment process for matching up people within your mentorship culture. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more on what are you asking of people, and then what what do you see in those relationships that you're trying to create? Why would you pair one person with another?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I don't know if anybody's done the self-assessment, but we've had folks that's done that. And one of the things we ask them to do is take it home and share with your spouse. And we've actually had spouses that cry because they're like, holy cow, this is what I've been trying to tell you, our whole marriage. What's unique about that is when you do that, you get somebody else from an outside third party telling the individual how they're wired. And it's more of an understanding of how do you work with folks? How do you handle somebody in a stressful situation? And really sharing that with other individuals on the team is what we found to be successful. What we found out though, Michael, was that the test itself is probably not the giving us the answer that we need. Our gut feeling pretty much tells us that. It's more of a support that gets us to where we want to do it. And it kind of matches us up with the right folks.
Gotcha. When you guys are matching people up, and I want to get an answer from everybody on this question, but are you trying to pair someone with a more senior person along a similar career path, or are you trying to enhance the culture of the organization by pairing people together to talk that maybe just get along personally, but maybe in totally different divisions? How do you guys think about that when you're making these relationships happen?
Am I able to say yes? I mean, yes to all of
A little
that?
bit of everything.
Yeah,
No,
it's a little bit.
that's
It
fine.
is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think, some of the things where I've struggled and is where I thought I needed to remain the mentor. And I've had others that come along and say, hey, I can mentor that individual. It's time for you to be a boss, right? So balancing that out where recognizing that you can't always be a mentor, that there's other folks that are better suited.
Sure. Greg, I want to come to you on that because you had mentioned that you guys kind of assign a mentor when somebody is new to Schaefer. How do you go about maybe picking who that person is?
Sure, there's, as Justin said, several sorts of considerations. So yes is the answer to a lot of that, but it is usually a blend of personal desires. And when I say personal desires, what I mean is one of the key success factors for people that are good mentors is they really want to do it. They come wired with that teacher's spirit or that teacher's heart. They want to make the time to do it. And so from that standpoint, we have a decent pool of people that fit naturally into that category. Not that there's not a home for you if you don't. There's certainly many different ways that you can contribute. But that is something that we are looking for. We are looking for, in our industry, we tend to segment into markets. So if we have someone new coming into Schaefer who is super passionate about the industrial market and the healthcare market, we will tend to try to find a mentor who is active in those markets so that you get the benefit of not only partnering with someone who is interested in being a mentor, but you get to work on stuff together that is of interest to you. So as best we can balance what the firm needs and with what individual wants, we will tend to make those pairings wherever we can, because ultimately that will help lead us to our best success. If everybody involved is able to, we're able to have that perfect alignment of what people are excited about, that's great. Sometimes you might only get half or 2/3 of that, but it is the recipe that we try to follow as best we can.
Are those pairings, Greg, that may change over time? Have you ever looked at
Absolutely.
something?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in a service-based industry, we crank out. It's still different than from the construction side, where you may have fewer humongous commitments as far as projects. We will send 1,200, 1,300 projects out the door in our office in any year. So at any point in time, some of our project managers or some of our projects engineers, they may touch 10, 20 projects in a 2-week span. So the better that you are able to interface with a variety of personalities, whether it is an architect, who is in early schematic design phase and just thinking, huge big picture, or whether it is someone that works, for Albert or Jim or Justin, who just needs to actually get something built so they can move on to the next thing because that deadline is coming. You have a huge variety of personalities you need to be able to successfully work with. So from that standpoint, we do try to mix up the mentor relationship because, whether it's different project managers or different external clients, your ability to successfully communicate and execute with a variety of personalities is a key success factor for you in our industry.
Great. Albert, I want to come to you with a similar question. You mentioned that your people are meeting on a weekly basis to chat through things, and you're very focused on not only professionally but also personally. So in that you're trying to create that level of intimacy and have people be pretty close with one another. How do you go about pairing people up?
So our number one value is diversity wins. And anybody that gets an email from Juston, at the bottom of our email, it says diversity wins. And we believe in getting people together that come from diverse ways of thinking, is what Greg was just saying. They think differently. They are different colors. They come from different backgrounds. So your boss, who you're meeting with on your one-on-one, I'm truly want the diversity to shine through on the diversity of thought, the diversity of understanding, the diversity of how you were raised, so that you can have empathy for people. So we base our one-on-ones on, we aren't intentionally bringing two people together to have a mentor-mentee conversation. We want it to happen within the department, and that department can be made up of Black people, white people, women. Anybody that knows Juston, we have 3 young ladies that are in the C-suite here. That's diversity. And the way a young lady thinks about leading a business is different than how I would lead a business possibly. But as we come together and have conversation, and my wife makes me think her way, then they really think diversity change. So we try to bring people together through our different departments and make sure our different departments, we're very intentional in making our different departments made up of different people, and that each of those departments are diverse so that everybody can understand and empathize with different people.
Great. That's awesome. Jim, how about you guys? What are you doing, or how are you looking at bringing people together? And again, if as you guys are maybe adjusting things, is that something you'll take a closer look at going forward?
Sure. I just had to do it. I looked up the word mentor, and it says a wise and trusted counselor or teacher, an influential senior sponsor or supporter. Now, it's interesting because when you think about the term mentor, a lot of folks and a lot of businesses have their way of defining it. But one of the reasons why I want to look that up is because something that we've done different here is, in the case of a wise or trusted counselor, sometimes wisdom comes through experience, hard knock, some combination of things that makes you a wise person. Well, we actually, our CEO did something a little different. He actually asked one of our younger managers to be his mentor. And the reason why he did that was because he wanted to get their input on how he saw things. So it was actually just the reverse order of things. So he actually asked someone to be his mentor. So he found someone he thought could match himself up with based on his current need. Now, obviously, he's CEO of an organization. He's lived a long time. He's about 2 days older than I am. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And so for that reason, we have a tendency, because in this along our journeys, we become more and more knowledgeable. We go through a few more trials and tribulations, and we earn that wisdom. Well, sometimes by doing that, it does separate you in a way that you can find yourself being a little bit more out of touch. So one of the things that's important is we want to make sure when it comes to matching folks up is kind of figure out what their needs are. And sometimes you may have that within your organization. And sometimes you might find that you need to go outside your organization to get that support. So that's kind of what we do. We first try and find out what's the need. And we do that by way of an assessment. We do that by way, and when I say assessment, there are all kinds of formal assessments. There are the kinds you can spend 15 minutes on, or you go to do a 360. All of those different kinds of assessments. But sometimes it's really more of an assessment of just really understanding what that person needs and being able to recognize that here's what they need at this current moment, and then put a person or something else in place that will satisfy that need at that moment. So that's the process that we use. So it's a little mix. And we take the data from a number of different things that we already have in place.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, you had kind of alluded to that earlier when you talked about the construction industry in particular can be very generational.
Yes.
And the mentorship can kind of go both ways as a result. And with the technology that's coming into the industry, it almost creates an opportunity where some of the younger folks that are maybe more comfortable with that are able to mentor up a little bit. And I think you guys would all agree, and anyone can jump in and elaborate if you want, but I think by creating that type of culture of people looking out for each other and creating that comfort and empowering people, all things I've heard you say, I would argue, and I would think you guys probably see it in your organizations, it makes it much more likely that those kind of things are going to happen, and you're going to see that collaboration when it's necessary, regardless of if somebody's older or in a different division or a different role or whatever it might be.
Yes. I'll just add a little bit more and I let others respond as well. I'll even speak for myself, as I often tell the joke. When I moved here to Cincinnati, I couldn't spell Cincinnati. I didn't remember the jingle, how many N's and T's and I's that were in the word. But one of the things that I knew that I needed mentoring for was personally learning the culture and the landscape of Cincinnati. So I personally had to go outside the organization by joining boards, by being a part of other groups, and just kind of pairing myself up with someone who in business that kind of gave me some insight on the things that were important for me, which helped me to better embrace being here. So that was a situation. In some instances, some of those folks didn't know why I kept hanging around at their doorstep, but they were mentoring me to some degree as well. And I think that's important for us to recognize what that need is. And in some instances, you may know it yourself more so than the person who's been assigned to be your mentor. So I think it's important that you share with them what you're trying to get out of that relationship more so than anything else.
Sure.
I'll add that Jim is not just blowing smoke here. When he did come to Cincinnati many years ago, I was on the membership committee at Ally Construction Industries at the time, and I was assigned as Jim's mentor. And while he could have said, "Oh, how cute, this engineer is going to be my mentor," he was a very humble and willing mentee, and we spent some good lunches together and hung out a little bit. And so I'd forgotten about that till just now. So thank you for the good memories, Jim.
I bet I still owe you. It's still my turn to buy, I bet.
Yeah, we'll take care of that later.
Greg, I'll stay with you for a second because in our kind of preparation and going through things for this, we had an interesting discussion, and I know you wanted to kind of weigh in, but we've heard a lot about using mentoring within companies to help with retention. Obviously, you're not ever going to have 100% retention. People are going to move on to other careers, other companies, other opportunities. Talk a little bit about how that understanding fits in with how you guys do mentoring, and just expand on your thoughts on that a little bit more if you can.
Sure. There's several principles in play here that I consider when it comes to mentoring, and one of which is you really should focus your time, your effort, and your emotional energy on what you can control. And if you're worrying about putting training into someone, you say, well, if I train them up and they have this great skill set, they're just going to leave, then, I mean, you're wasting time and energy on stuff you can't control. You should be looking at individuals' integrity, and not that anybody that would leave a company has poor integrity, but you're assessing fit. And ultimately, my primary job is to make Schaefer the best structural engineering firm in the world to work for. That is what I need to be focusing on. That is where my energy, my time, and my effort should go. I talked earlier about changing and how, as people change, the company is going to change. And you might find that as your firm grows with time, that someone may be wired for, hey, my best fit is at a smaller firm. So there will be some natural turnover. While we all want every single employee to grow and match everything as your firm grows, it might not happen. I can say that for us, we've had you have bright, smart individuals who like to grow like we do. Sometimes there will be some changes that happen. Jeff Ryan was mentioned earlier today as one of the people that organized this event and the chair of the YP committee. I mean, he worked with Schaefer for several years, and as his career evolved, he decided he had some strong interest in project management and on the CM side of things. And we just had really good conversation, and he's doing a great job with Terex right now, which is great. We're thrilled for him. We're thrilled for Terex, and everybody wins in that situation. We had another former employee who had some leadership gifts and some administrative gifts, and she's now running the Claremont Chamber of Commerce, which is, that's great for her. Everybody should win in these situations, because if you're doing the right thing and treating people the right way, number one, that's just kind of what you should be doing. That's what my parents taught me, and the way everyone should hopefully be conducting their business. But also on a more practical level, it's a small world, and how you treat people matters. So from that standpoint, it's you control what you can control, and just know that it's a small world out there, and the impact and the influence you have on people. They don't necessarily have to work for the same organization as you for you to have impactful relationships with people.
Sure. Kind of along those same lines, and I'll open this up to the group if someone wants to weigh in. I would argue that having a good mentoring culture not only helps internally within your organization, but the construction industry being very close-knit and requiring a lot of collaboration on job sites and such, I would guess that probably helps your individuals and helps your company in relation to your other partners or even competitors out in the community. Can you guys talk about maybe what benefits you see or what impact the mentoring internally has had on your firm and your people when they go out and they're interacting with individuals from other organizations? And Greg, you're on if you want to address that, and
okay.
then I can go around. Sorry.
Sure. Okay. No, I'm happy to do that because I was presenting on a panel at University of Cincinnati to a group of seniors the other day, and one of the things we had talked about is, where do you learn information? These individuals are getting ready to go out into the construction industry, and what I told those individuals, I'll repeat it here, is you need to have your antenna up all the time and be learning from everyone. So that's internal mentorship, but then also external mentorship. Some of the best lessons I have ever learned have been from people that finish concrete for a living or do steel detailing, and they talk about what is a good way to frame something up. So having that humble mentee focus will serve you very, very well. The actual basis of this panel I was on for University of Cincinnati was case studies with some dramatic failures, and a huge takeaway there I'm hoping the students walked away with. I know it's a lesson that I'm aware of just from having co-opted in the construction industry for a contractor, not a structural engineer, is that if you as a design professional actually listen to people, whether it's somebody who's running the backhoe and can observe stuff and has seen stuff for years, is you can avoid tragedy if you actually listen and pay attention and look at everybody as a potential mentor for you and not just those that work within the same firm.
Does anybody else want to talk to that a little bit?
Sure, I'll add a little bit. I think the other is a little bit of a benefit as I think about when you're a good mentorship program. And when I say program, some of them are very, very structured. I've seen the best of super structured, where there's so many things you got to do, where it can become very laborious and it kind of defeats its purpose a little bit. And I've seen some that are just, kind of like, let's just go hang out, and not very structured at all. So, but nonetheless, if you have an effort that tries to meet your folks internally, because as a business, because we're all on the call here, we are employed by some entity of sorts. So we're talking about mentorship via your business organization that you're employed by. Once you leave the construct of what's happening within your organization, we're all in business to serve our customers. So your customer is the first people to see what you've gained from your experiences of your organization. So there are things that we can teach you how to do as far as being a good estimator, being a good manager, being a good carpenter, all of those technical kinds of things, and coach you along the way and mentor you so you can be your best you. But that shows up, the value of what that is, it shows up with your customers. So when your customers recognize, employee A with this organization versus employee A with another organization, sometimes that differentiator is the simple fact that one of those two had a good mentorship program, so that they did that added thing that made that customer feel really good about working with them. And that's why they picked that organization or that entity for that, because of that individual. So everybody on this call should realize that you're not just delivering a service, you're delivering an experience when you go and work with your customers. That's the first thing. Secondly is, if you're being a good mentorship relationship, it brings about this, makes what I would call the wholesomeness. If you're healthy, you can go out and join, and I don't mean healthy in a physical kind of way, but if you've got a good spirit about yourself, a good mindset about yourself, if you go join a community organization, which is so important here in this city, you really need to be a part of some organization that is giving and supporting the needs of others. Because when you're doing that, guess what's happening? You're now in a position where you're becoming a mentor even for others in some instances. So I think that the values that you get from the mentoring program of sorts, whether it's first and foremost, it's a resource need or support need within an organization, but then externally, your customers are going to see it. And then second of your customers, I would say out in the community, are those that aren't necessarily looking for a service in kind, but just that form of engagement as a result of that is what helps you to be your better you.
Excellent. Justin, do you have any thoughts on that, on the impact of the mentoring culture out in the construction community?
Yeah, I mean, I could add just a few things to what Greg and Jim had spoke about. I mean, I think our industry, I know for me personally, I've lost sight of oftentimes how many opportunities there are in our industry. And I like to share with young individuals looking to get into it that we take for granted, I think, how resourceful it is. And it is so much fun to be able to play like matchmaker, right? Like when somebody comes with a question, what about this college? What about this engineering firm? What about this GC? To be able to grab your phone and say, yeah, where do we start? And start making those connections. I think we're definitely blessed in the construction industry, to your point, Michael, that they're very resourceful and close-knit.
Excellent. Albert, anything you want to add on that? And if not, I got another question for you.
Well, I would say, I think the construction industry, we do a good job of mentoring our people, and Justin and Jim and Greg said it all. This is a tight-knit community, and mentoring is big in our community. One thing that Justin does outside of our construction mentoring, everybody here has to be on a board. at Juston Construction. You know, I don't know if I'm the best leader. I don't know if Whitney's the best leader or Mike Mattis or, you know, but we all have our leadership styles. And here at Juston, we want you to see other companies' leadership styles. And so we want you to be on a board, and it's mandatory you're on a board, and you're on a board that is within our industry. And then you have to be on a board within your community so that you're giving back to the community. And while you're on those boards, you're getting to learn other people's leadership styles, management styles, how their organization is developed and made, how do they think, and how can you then take everything you're learning in Juston and give to them as guidance and mentor. And better yet, how are you learning on that board, from that board, how to bring all that back to Juston or to any other construction company. Going back to another thing Greg said, you know, within Juston, one thing I learned that is the construction industry, we're different from just about every other industry. And I'm sitting here talking to some leaders at EY, leaders at Dinsmore, and they go out and hire people and more people every year. They go out and hire 1,000 people, young kids out of college to come in their organization. But they know at the end of the year, they're only going to have 50 of them left. And they teach and learn and mentor, and then they pick 950. Some people pick them, some people just leave. But all those little butterflies are putting out into the community. They know they're going to get back. They're putting their culture in the people and training and opportunities. And then they know that they can do business globally or state to state or city. So what's Juston do? Juston says, how do we mentor? We're going to bring people in. We're going to take those learnings. We're going to teach. And then, you know, if you want to stay at Juston, you stay. But I talk to people about, you know, Juston's only going to be so big. If you want to be on a $100 million project, you got to go to Triversity or Messer or Turner. We're doing $10 million projects. So we can't offer everything somebody wants, but what we can is give you our culture and our learning and our upbringing so that when you do go to one of these other companies, you know who Juston is, you know we stand by what we do, and you would want to encourage your new company to work with Juston. So it's great mentoring within the construction industry.
Sure. Albert, I want to stick with you and address something that you brought up early on. You mentioned that you guys refer to not as mentor-mentees, but allies. Talk a little bit more about why you're doing that and why you felt like people were maybe pushing back on the title or terminology that you were using before.
You know, I really don't know. I think a lot of people would think, some people think that if you have a mentor, it's like you need help. And a lot of people think, I don't want to portray I need help. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs guidance. So it was better for Juston to say, we have allies, somebody that's working on your behalf. I'm working on your behalf to understand you, to understand your goals in life, where you want to go, and how can I help you get there? And I think words matter to people. And so if you feel that within, definitely our field professionals love the word ally, that somebody is talking within Juston on their behalf, whether it's on their individual behalf, or if they're speaking for the finishers, or if they're speaking for the laborers or the project managers. This is something we need. This is a tool we need. And so we changed the word to I think it just made people feel more comfortable. And I think it's just small changes like that if you can make your people feel more comfortable and also realize that you're willing to change, you're a company that's willing to change, then they stick with you. And I'm not even sure how we changed to ally, but it was probably a suggestion that came from where Greg was talking about the backhoe operator, one of our finishers, laborers, one of our field professionals that said, we would prefer this program to be an ally program, and we made change.
Gotcha. Greg, I want to come back to you. This is a question that kind of came in from someone out in the audience. the best practices for kind of starting a more formal program. You know, you had mentioned you guys are assigning a mentor to anybody that's a new employee with Schaefer. If a company does not have any sort of mentor program in place and it's not a part of what they do, what would be your advice to them to kind of get that started and maybe some best practices for getting it off the ground?
Sure. I guess I will tailor my answer. This is a YP group, so I will tailor my answer to if I'm a YP at a company right now that does not have a mentoring group, what would I want to know and how would I want to go about this? I think what I would do is I would think through all the benefits of the mentorship that we heard about today, that each of the panelists have talked about. So you will want to understand how that works. So it's the employee development, it's actually for the mentee, but it's actually development for the mentor, the retention benefits, something that we didn't talk on about, but as you would want to try to get any sort of new formal program running at a company, you're going to have to go up the chain and talk to someone like a Juston, Jim, or Albert. And if they're not familiar with it, or me, and the first thing, while they might not say it first thing they're going to be thinking about is cost. So is this going to be like really going to inhibit our efficiency? Is this going to be really expensive? The answer to that is no, because really what you're talking about is some lunches, some coffees, very inexpensive. And then you basically have time spent talking about the work that is getting done and how can you do the work better. So done well, this program pays for itself pretty quickly. So from that standpoint, it is something that I would kind of plan out what that conversation looks like. And then in the spirit of what we have said with mentoring, and everyone should be willing to be a mentee as well. I'm speaking for my other panelists here. If you have a boss at work that has got questions about that, I would not hesitate to offer my own time to talk to this individual about what a mentor program might look like. And the way the construction industry works, I'm pretty sure that Justin, Albert, and Jim would be willing to have a conversation with the decision makers as well, as far as what a mentoring program would look like. So I would probably go about it from that standpoint with the key focus of, done well, everybody's going to win and it's going to pay for itself pretty quickly. And especially when it comes to employee development and retention.
Yeah. Did anyone else want to weigh in on that? Any best practices or key learnings as you kind of got your program up and running?
I wouldn't mind just jumping in real quick. And, I think it's important to share some of the failures too. And I can share stories on and on, but I think it's got to be natural. Don't force it. We try to force a program out to our field workers, and it backfired pretty quick. So listen more than you talk, but listen to what the folks want, and try not to force anything.
Great. Here's something else that came in. I think Albert, you can probably speak to this, and based on some of the answers you gave earlier, but what advice would you have for creating a culture of kind of uniformity and openness across the company, across generations, across roles? And I think Jim, you two kind of talked to this a lot, but how do you really influence that within your organizations and promote that?
Say as the leader or organization, you have to say when you made a mistake. As Justin just said, they tried to force something on their field employees, a program, and it didn't work. We all make mistakes. And I think as the leadership team, when we make mistakes, you have to be able to say, especially a leader of business, I made a mistake, and not even put the word we in it. I made a mistake. And when people can see that you're vulnerable and you are accepting, then they can be vulnerable and they can say, I made a mistake, or how can I get better at this? If I show that where I'm lacking If people know where Albert Smitherman's gaps are, and I say, oh, we are hiring this person to make Albert Smitherman better in this situation, then other people will say, when they are approached and we think they have a gap, how can we hire somebody? What kind of professional development can we get you? How can we assist you in becoming better? And so I think it's all about your vulnerability and what you show as a leader, and then what you show as a leadership team. How you admit your as much as you celebrate your wins, how much do you also talk about where we misguided ourselves or misguided our company, and what can everybody learn from that? But can you, as the owner and the leadership team, really take ownership in what we did wrong? And I think when we do that, it allows everybody in our business to show that just making mistake is not going to just be the downfall of you or your career. It's about how you handle it. So.
Did Albert's wife Liza ask that question, Michael? Just curious.
I can't say who that came from.
I don't know if she's on here, Justin, but she probably did. But she wouldn't ask that question.
That's who we want to talk to, right?
That's really who you want to talk to. Just let her just tell you where I went wrong. But she keeps me straightened up, you know.
Yep.
She keeps trying to align me. I would say, we're talking about mentoring, and Justin just mentioned my wife, and I mention my wife all the time. But it's okay to have more than one mentor. And I didn't know that till about 3 or 4 years ago. So somebody told me, and so spiritually, my wife is my spiritual mentor. And then I have a professional mentor. And my professional mentor as I was growing up was Pete Strange. And that brother could tell me, we could have honest conversation. He would tell me where he thinks I was messing up. And sometimes I'd listen to him and sometimes I wouldn't. We still get together and have a drink and talk about what Justin's doing and personally what Albert's doing and where Albert wants to go and how we want to strategically align this business and what do we want to do with Justin. Then I think he got tired of talking to me one-on-one and he started bringing Kathy Daly, and Liza started coming, or maybe just Liza and Kathy didn't think we were getting enough work done. So now it's 4 of us sit together and make sure that we're doing. But you can have a different mentor for different things, different parts of your life, your personal life. And I think you need a mentor that that is talking to you about your personal life and where you want to go and where you want to be in life and where are you now. And that might not be your business mentor, and because those are different roles, and then your spiritual mentor. And I didn't know that till about 3 or 4 years ago. And at the end of the day, I just think you get a mentor for the time in your life when you need them, when you have them, and what they're for.
That's actually a great segue into one of our other questions. And I'm going to come back to you, Jim, because you mentioned that Greg was a mentor to you early on at ACI and you move into the city. But I want each of you to tell us a little bit about, personally speaking, do you have mentors that you rely on now or that you did in the past in certain parts of your career, and what role did they play in helping you get where you are today?
Yeah, there's, and Albert hit on it. I kind of look at it in a form of you have a mentor for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And sometimes when I look back at, I had someone similar, when you talk about a season, it may be because you're just in the midst of a thing or something that you're doing, and you just need coaching, helping, guidance at that very moment. And as you get through it, you're good. Not every organization has the capacity to provide that person for that particular need. So sometimes you have to go out. So for me personally, I would say I've had a variation of mentors, but I can remember them all. And whether it's more of a personal need, whether it's more of a liaison type of a need, or whether it was more for professional development. And sometimes I've even had mentors that were close to my peers. So it's not always someone, when I left, I worked for Turner in Chicago, and then I worked for Turner when I moved to Detroit. And I had a peer who kind of helped me understand the ropes of this giant organization and how to navigate myself and my career through that. And so I would go to that person, you know, equally as much as I went as a mentor that I had that was, you know, much more seasoned, much more developed in their careers and in business. So I've had a variation of different mentors, as I call it, a season, a reason, and then a lifetime. And sometimes those lifetime mentors are the ones that talk to you about family, the ones that talk to you about looking at retirement, those that talk to you about, you know, what it's like to go out and be leaving a legacy for all of the efforts and all of, you know, things that you've done within your career. So that's my thought in terms of the different forms of mentorship.
That's great. That's great. Justin, I want to come to you with the same question. What mentors have you relied on throughout your career, past and present?
I don't have enough time. I've got several. You know, what my goals in life is to become like those mentors, right? If I can strive to become like that, I think I'll win in the end, be successful. You know, I think sometimes you look back in life and some folks you never asked to be a mentor and you didn't realize that they actually were mentors. And I've probably got more of those folks in my life than I do those individuals that I went to and said, hey, will you be my mentor? I know personally speaking, if you've ever been asked to be a mentor, those are the moments that you'll probably never forget. That feeling when somebody asks you to be their personal mentor. I've had that happen a few times, and you get humbled and honored by those situations. So learning from that, I've continued to do that on my own as well. But to answer your question, Michael, there's too many to count.
Good. Greg, I'll come to you. Same thing. How have mentors kind of impacted you in your career path and personally?
I think it's very similar to the other gentlemen that have spoken on this, where there's just so many. And I think the term that I've used occasionally to describe it is kind of almost like stealth mentoring, where it's just all these different people that are in your life. And if you are wise, you are surrounding yourself with people that build you up, you build them up, and you're doing great things together. And if you are consistently in situations like that, you will have all sorts of opportunity to look on people who are different than you. Some may be similar, many different than you, and assess. You know, if I'm working with Justin, Jim, and Albert, I might say, you know, Justin has this servant heart that I would do well to do a better job of emulating that. And what makes Justin so successful at this? You know, Jim is this point in charge leader. Let's go. And you know, how would I be better served in my career and what I'm trying to accomplish with my personal journeys, such that if I could do more of that, what makes Jim be able to do that? How has he learned to do that? So just, even if neither one of those individuals are, you know, a formal mentor, I would not ever get hung up on terminology and whatnot. Just keep your eyes and ears open and a humble heart, such that you can always be learning and valuing just the tremendous qualities of those that you're blessed to be surrounded with each day, and it will serve you well. That's the best answer I have, I think, for that question. That's building on what they said.
Yeah, no, that's great. We've had a couple questions kind of come in from the audience here, so I'll throw these out there, and if anybody wants to jump in and answer, feel free. But one was whether or not there's a formal timeline for how long somebody should mentor someone else. And I think obviously we've heard you guys discuss that in a lot of cases, especially on the personal side of things, you might have a lifelong mentor. But maybe within the context of a formal program at your organization, is that something you revisit on a given time frame, or do you just kind of let things play out indefinitely?
Yeah, I just real quick on that. I think you want to find folks that complement your vision, right? And sometimes your visions may change. So I don't think there's a cutoff point by any means, but just making sure that your inner circle, those folks that complement your vision.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a season for everything, and you can use a mentor for a season. You can use a mentor like Jim was saying. He wanted to go talk to somebody just in that moment that helped him through, this is what I'm going through, and he knew somebody could help him in that space, and that could last a month or 3 months, or you could keep somebody for years or a lifetime. I just think you're always out there. I just think it depends on the relationship and what you're looking for in that time.
I think a good thing to assess in those situations. I'll answer it two ways. Personally, it comes down to what do you need from this relationship on your personal life journey, and you will inevitably need someone at some point in time that can put their arm around you and encourage you. And then other times you will need someone who can basically speak truth to you when you are in denial, even if it ticks you off, and to wake you up and be able to assess, okay, that is, in hindsight, you can see that's what I needed to hear. So from a personal standpoint, the best mentors are able to do both of those. They know what you need at what point you need it and do both. In a corporate setting, I would say, as you're working with mentors and mentees within, I would say the best way to assess that is, has that relationship gotten stale? Are both people growing and progressing, or is it just comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
That would be in a corporate setting how I would assess if it's time to break off a mentor relationship and switch it up.
Greg, how would you go about ending an existing mentor-mentee relationship like that? That was another question that came in. So if you could just elaborate, how do you go about that? What's the message that you give, or who gives it, that kind of thing?
Sure. So in a corporate setting, that it would be very simple. It would be, one of the principles we have that is that everybody needs to be growing and developing. And we think in this particular situation, the individuals involved will be able to more effectively grow and develop in a different relationship. It doesn't mean that anybody failed or anybody screwed up or did anything wrong. It's just that, okay, this has kind of run its course, and it's time to stretch someone by putting them in a new situation, a new setting, and part of that's mentor-mentee relationship. So very rarely do we have any issues with mixing up that sort of mentor-mentee relationship at work.
Have any of you, this was another audience question that I think is interesting. Juston, you mentioned how humbling of an experience it is to be asked to be a mentor, and that's something you never forget. I'd imagine all four of you guys have similar circumstances, but have you ever recognized that as a maybe not a good match, or someone's come to you looking for mentoring that you feel like you can't help or don't want to help for any reason, and how do you go about handling a situation like that?
That's a great question. I would say I can give some examples of that recently happening. And I think, the diversity portion that Albert had mentioned earlier, recognizing that other folks may have more common interest in understanding that and being able to make that match. I've recently experienced that and being smart enough to get out of the way, but still staying connected, but maybe not on that day-to-day connection. So I think it's just recognizing it. And I don't want to use the word pivot, because pivot's been used way too many times over this COVID season, but being able to do that, shift gears and go a different direction.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? If not, we've got a few minutes left, and I do have something I want to end on, so I can jump to that unless anyone wanted to chime in. All right, Juston, we'll stick with you, and then I'll move to the rest of you guys to kind of close it out here. But I'd like to hear one story or case study or example from within your organization or your personal life on a winning mentorship moment, where you kind of saw it all come together, for some individuals, and this whole idea of the enhanced culture and all the benefits we've discussed that you get, where you kind of were able to see it play out.
Yeah, there's several stories, but for the sake of this group, I think part of what's session 2 and session 3 that's coming up, I think you're going to see some of that. We've got in the organization, we've got a mentor and a mentoree, or mentee. How you say that, mentee? I think it's
Got it.
mentee.
Yeah.
That's going to be a part of the next couple sessions. Actually, I was asked to move out of the way so that growth can continue. And am I allowed to say stay tuned?
Yeah.
All right, well, stay tuned.
All right. Jim, how about you? What's a story of mentorship winning and making a difference that you've got?
And I got to tell you, we unfortunately over the last few years have seen some really tough times in terms of world order of things, and just people and amongst each other. And I had a strange thing happen to me. I had someone, a counterpart, ask me if I would mentor them and just understanding some of the cultural things that are happening in our country. And it caught me by surprise. And all I did was simply tell a little bit of my story, a little bit of my story, a little bit of my travels, and the impact that had, because that person trusted me. First of all, they trusted me enough to say, hey, listen, there's something I just don't quite understand. You might, if I ask you, if you mind mentoring me in a space of something that I've just maybe not been clearly conscious of. And of course, a lot of it had to do with race. A lot of it had to do with where you've been, your travels, and all those kinds of things. And it caught me, but it was a pleasant surprise that I was asked to do that. And then fast forwarding, and that's why I said this COVID thing has really done some weird things over time. And as a result of that interaction, I've gained a new super close friend as a result of that. Not just a business partner, but a friend who actually lives in another state, in another city. But because of our business connection, we were able to make a connection because that person felt comfortable enough to ask me a question and engage. And we've got great relationships, talk about family things that we're doing together now. It's just one of those instances. So that's the most recent experience that I've gotten, just from someone asking me if I could, mentor them in a space of today's climate world that we live in relative to racial type matters. Second to that, over the years, I can also remember a few folks, because everybody on here, you're either a young professional, but we're all young adults. We're all adults in some form. And you will see as time goes by, the folks that you do mentor yourself as a result of the experience that you've gained yourself, you can look at the names of people who have had successful careers or changes in their careers as a result of that engagement that you've had with them. There are sometimes I can see folks who can benefit from a good mentor relationship, and you can send someone that direction to go engage with them. So I would also encourage you that if you know someone that will be a good mentor for someone else, that you also do that as well. So those would be, I would say, 3 scenarios. One, where someone asked me here most recently. Secondly, there have been a number of people, just as Justin mentioned, that I've been able to mentor themselves, and I've seen them have great careers or even change their careers as a result of that. And then thirdly, if you know someone that you think would be a good mentor for someone that you know, then try to make that connection, because the value that they get from that will be something that lasts a lifetime. And you had an opportunity to support that.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Albert, I want to give you a quick second to weigh in on that with a good story.
So I would say my story is probably about me. And here I am working for a business, and I want to start my own business, and I start my own business. And of course, I go out in the world and I want to find a mentor to help me be a better business person. And what I found very quickly is what I had to do is become a better leader and a better person, and probably the biggest, be a better listener. And, I didn't know it, but it would be like what Greg or Justin or Jim were saying. You don't know who your mentors are all the time. You're just with them. So my wife has told me for 23 years to become a better listener, and that I need to become a better listener. And if I become a better listener, then I'll become a better person, and I'll become a better leader, and I'll become a better leader of an organization. And, men, it's hard for us to put 1 + 1 really equals 2. But, it takes us longer to get there. We get there. But, my wife's been working with me for all these years to become a better listener, better listener, better listener. Now I tell myself before every meeting, when I'm sitting in a boardroom, I find myself saying, be a listener and be a better listener, engage in the conversation, make sure you hear everything the person is saying. My wife brags about my father, that if he were talking to you, you would feel like you were the only person in that room. If there were 100 people in that room, you would feel like you were the only person in that room, and that he was directly listening to you, and how that makes another person feel. And how can you get that quality within yourself that then you can take that quality and give it to other people. And I think as much as my wife has just been instilling in me to be a better person, but bigger, to be a better listener, now all of a sudden, I find I have better relationships. I have better business practices. I'm a better business person. So, my success story would be, it's about, not where I mentored somebody, but where I have been a mentee and been mentored myself, and how it has made me truly a better leader of our organization.
Great. And Greg, we're a little over on time, but I want to give you a chance to weigh in on any success story that you have.
Yeah, I'll give a really quick story. This is, again, self. It's one of those kind of stealth mentors, someone that I respected because they did a good job. I mentioned earlier that I didn't necessarily co-op in the construction industry or in the structural engineering industry. I co-opted for Messer General Contractor. And as a co-op, I got one of those glory co-op duties where I got sent off to pick up all the signs that they were going to put up on the construction site. So no construction traffic, no parking here, all those sorts of signs. And this was dating myself back in the day before everyone had cell phones. So I went to pick up the signs, got all the signs. I noticed that like half of them had words spelled wrong and the arrows pointing in the wrong direction, just a train wreck. So I sent them back and had them redo the signs. But eventually I got back to the job site like an hour or so later than everybody thought I was supposed to be back. So the carpenter that I was supposed to be shooting line and grade for was furious because they were running behind and his people might have to stay late because I didn't get the line and grade shot because I was back tapping my toe in the lobby of the sign office. And I explained where I'd been, why it took so long and whatnot. And this carpenter, I don't even remember his name now, but I respected him because he did a good job. He said, "Oh, seems like you're catching on now because not only can you handle your business and what you have to do, you're thinking big picture of what we're trying to accomplish here on the whole site." So that is just one little snippet of there's like over years, just thousands of things like that will help develop people if you're willing to listen and pay attention and approach your job with a humble heart.
Awesome. Well, we're a little over on time. Thank you everybody for sticking with us. Justin, Albert, Jim, Greg, I want to thank the four of you again for participating and for your time. I know you're all extremely busy, so to give us your time today is very gracious of you, and thank you. I would like to invite everyone, if you're not already signed up for our next discussion in 2 weeks, Justin alluded to it a little bit. We're gonna continue with the mentoring theme and continue unveiling kind of what we're doing within ACI, but the next group of panelists will all be mentor-mentee pairings, and we'll dive in a lot more into the personal relationship and how they met and what those individuals get out of that relationship. So we really hope you'll join us for that. And then there'll also be a third session that we'll set up at the end of that second one. But thank you to everyone for participating and being here this morning. I'm going to kick it back to Erica to close us out.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much to our panelists. And I want to share a special thank you with Michael Raitt. He has been an amazing moderator today. So congratulations and thank you. And Michael is actually one of our panelists on the next one, and Miss Caroline Courtney with Chubb Sturd, excuse me, will be your moderator next time. So like Michael said, if you haven't signed up, I'll probably still send out the information to you anyway. 8 a.m. on April 14th. For session 2. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Michael. And I will send the recording for this later this week, and there you will receive a survey on today's presentation. So if you have questions for the panelists next time, or if you didn't get to ask Justin, Greg, Albert, or Jim something, I can relay that message to them for you. Again, thank you guys so much and have a fabulous Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.